When 99 meet 9, the depths of reason shall stir. When the seal of creation is broken, a voice like thunder shall sound, and thou shalt know. We have arrived.
Greetings Game Watchers, I'm Chris Capel and welcome to the review of Final Fantasy Type 0 HD, which was released on consoles back in March. It did quite well, mostly because it came bundled with a sizable demo of Final Fantasy 15. Now at the end of August 2015, Square Enix has blessed PC owners with a port, which may I remind you originally came out on PSP in Japan in October 2011. It does not include the Final Fantasy 15 demo. The story can be summed up like this. I don't have a f***ing clue. There's great storytelling in Japanese anime and games, and the Final Fantasy series is usually fine. Final Fantasy Type 0, however, is anime at its absolute worst, the type that gives Japanese storytelling a bad name, especially in gaming. Long pointless cutscenes with no player input, excruciating and utterly unnatural dialogue, poor over-the-top voice acting.
How about... Moglin! 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 Alen!
One-upmanship, all-purpose magic powers featuring a lot of posing, characters who are impossible to care about with little to no personality, and a little bit of sexism, but honestly it's to both genders. It really is difficult to work out what's going on, or care. Supposedly it's part of the same Nova Crystallis universe as Final Fantasy 13 and 15, but that's not a good thing, since that's the least interesting and most exaggerated Final Fantasy world out there. Every sentence contains phrases like Vermilion Bird Crystal, Lycae Cumi, White Peristyllium, Eidolons and other nonsense words. So the story and all its millions of overlong CGI uninteractive out of place but fortunately skippable cutscenes aren't much cop unless you have a high tolerance for rambling bollocks. Fortunately though, the general setup itself is interesting and is at least moderately well handled. Basically your gang, the Agito Cadets, are the elite squad of a militarised version of Hogwarts School for Witchcraft and Wizardry, and all their magical powers are put to use in warfare rather than turning a rat into a lamp or levitating books. Fortunately things pick up when you're allowed to actually do something. There is some basic exploration in the hub where you can chat to certain cadets and do rather boring tasks. Various items can be bought, but the shop system is awful. It will tell you if a cadet has a weapon equipped, but it won't say if the one in the store is better or worse than the one they already have. You can also explore the overworld map too, I guess, but bear in mind it looks and plays worse than Final Fantasy VIII on the PS1, and unless you're riding a chocobo you'll hit an invisible random encounter every few seconds. The main gameplay though is all out real-time combat, using a mix of straight attacks and up to 3 magical abilities to defeat all enemies. You have up to 3 cadets on the battlefield at any time, and the player can switch between all 3. When they get defeated, new cadets out of 14 can be warped in to replace them, but bear in mind that all of them play different. Some have melee weapons, some have ranged, and one poor girl just has a flute and is useless at anything but support. Some have close magical attacks, some have cure, slow moving but powerful spells. You have to really learn all the various strengths and weaknesses of the cadets if you want to succeed. What especially needs to be watched for when locking on is the red or yellow flash before an enemy attack, where they're most vulnerable to a counter-attack and that'll do serious damage. You have to also move between enemies regularly via lock-on. It's all pleasingly tactical. What lets the gameplay down though is the annoying idea of draining magic from enemies after they die, which would be fine, except you stay locked onto a dead enemy even when there are a dozen living ones still attacking you. Furthermore, the camera is atrocious and will regularly get stuck on scenery or block your view. There are also proper action strategy moments on the overworld map which make a nice change of pace. You have to manage troops attacking or defending various towns on the map. You have to choose what troops to send out, where to strike and when to tackle objectives. Eventually when a town's ready to fall you get to attack it outright, clearing the streets in the main action mode before taking on a commander boss. Defeat them and the battle's won. It's simple but quite fun. Shame that this battle mode isn't in the game more. It has to be restated that this is an upscaled version of a PSP game. You know, the portable system slightly less powerful than a PS2. This isn't a slight, but do not expect mind-blowing graphics. They've been cleaned up a bit, but the overworld still looks worse than a PS1. Again, not actually a problem, except that areas are tiny and you'll be seeing loading screens every few meters, which is a real pain. For the most part, the gameplay of Final Fantasy Type 0 HD is great fun. Combat has some camera and character problems, but otherwise is enjoyable and nicely strategic, and the action strategy overworld moments are a highlight. I'm not so sure about the exploration, side quests, chocobo breeding, etc, especially with the tiny areas and many loading screens, but it's mostly optional stuff, barring the loading screens. The trouble is though, the gameplay is not the major part of the game. It's the story and the many long, non-interactive cutscenes that often feel out of place next to the PSP quality graphics of the main game. I enjoyed the military wizard school angle, but otherwise the story is utter nonsense. Badly told, badly acted, badly written and or translated, and changes scenes so often I never knew who was fighting for what side. There were no interesting or relatable characters and I found myself skipping most of the movies after I just couldn't take it anymore. There are things to like about Type 0 once you get past the boring beginning and the infinite cutscenes, but unless you have a high tolerance for really bad anime dialogue or a desperate Final Fantasy fan, you might want to skip Type 0. I gave Final Fantasy Type 0 HD a 6.0 score. Thanks for watching everybody, Chris Capel and Game Watcher out.
This sucks.
Thanks for watching again guys. If you enjoyed the review, you can help us out by subscribing to our YouTube channel, checking out our Twitter feed, and of course visiting GameWatcher.com for all your PC gaming needs.